modern day rock and roll.
We were going to name the album Sacagawea, but
But
do we know how to spell it?
But we, our distribution company, wouldn't go for it.
Yeah.
Why did you entitle it? Why did you entitle the album Nevermind?
I don't know. So I could brush off the question. Forget it. Doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
In the chronicles of music history, there are albums that transcend time, leaving a huge mark on culture as a whole. Released in 1991, Nirvana's Nevermind stands tall among these timeless classics. It was an album that shattered the mainstream and forever altered the landscape of rock music. To us guitar nerds, an integral part of the story behind the album were Kurt's guitars, instruments that carried the weight of his emotions, amplifying his inner turmoil with each chord strummed. Today, we take a deep dive into the stories behind these iconic guitars, exploring the profound impact they had on shaping the album and the enduring influence they left on generations of musicians. This Jaguar is one of Kurt's most recognizable guitars. It became famous as his main instrument during the Nevermind live tour, which is when the band gained a huge wave of new fans. In a previous video about Kurt's Bleach-era guitars, we talked about how he acquired the Jaguar around early 1991, shortly after his Mosrite guitar was stolen. At that point, the band was on a little break from touring, having performed only twice in the first 2 months of 1991. So Kurt had time to look for a new guitar, and he was specific about what he wanted, instead of just buying whatever worked, as he did in the past. According to the story, he discovered the Jaguar through an ad in LA's Recycler magazine, and at that time, it had already undergone significant modifications by the previous owner. The main thing was that the original single-coil pickups were replaced with 2 DiMarzios, a PAF in the neck, and a super distortion in the bridge position. Transitioning from single coils to humbuckers radically altered the guitar's sound, and this was likely a factor that drew Kurt to the instrument in the first place. There were also some other mods on the guitar, like the additional volume control, the Gibson's Tune-O-Matic bridge, the stock control knobs being replaced with chrome ones, identical to those fitted on Telecasters, and the original individual pickup selector switches being replaced with a single toggle switch. Very quickly, Kurt secured these with duct tape, probably to avoid accidentally toggling them while playing. Regarding the original owner responsible for these modifications, all things point to Martin Jenner, guitarist for Cliff Richard and the Everly Brothers. Both his and Kurt's Jaguars share the same modifications, indicating a strong possibility that they are the same guitar. Also, Chris Novoselic somewhat confirmed this story in a reply to a tweet discussing the discovery on the TDPRI forums. Regarding usage, Kurt started using this guitar extensively for live gigs during Nirvana's European tour in August 1991. And obviously, before that, he used it in the studio to record some of the songs off of Nevermind.
He had a couple other backup guitars there, like a Jazzmaster and maybe a Telecaster or whatever, but he liked that particular Mosrite.
He continued using it until 1993, although at that point, very sparsely. It was last seen on August 6, 1993, at the Seattle King Performance Center, Nirvana's last gig before the official beginning of the In Utero era. There are also some rumors that the guitar was at that point damaged, and that the bridge pickup needed to be replaced, in this case with a black-colored Seymour Duncan JB. However, even if this is true, it doesn't seem that Kurt ever used it with the new pickup installed, at least not live. As far as what happened to it after Kurt's death, it seems that it ended up with Hole's guitarist, Eric Erlandson. It's also worth noting that Fender released a Kurt Cobain signature model in 2005, which was based on this exact guitar. If you're in the market for a guitar, there will be links in the description where you can find one both used and new. In early 1991, Kurt Cobain started playing a black left-handed Stratocaster with a white pickguard and a full-sized humbucker in the bridge position. In fact, this is something that Kurt would almost always do on his Stratocasters. Remove the single coil bridge pickup and install something beefier in its place. The first time this particular guitar was photographed appears to be on March 5th, 1991 at the Bronx in Edmonton, Canada. But more importantly, he had this guitar with him when the band entered the studio to finish up Nevermind in May 1991. It was during those sessions that this guitar became an important piece of Nirvana's history. According to Butch Vig, who produced the album, Kurt Cobain became frustrated while recording Lithium, and after the third or fourth take, he suddenly began playing Endless, Nameless, without warning the band. The scene was described as scary, filled with rage and frustration. And to top it all, at the end of the song, he ended up smashing this black Stratocaster right there in the studio.
Kurt just said, stop, stop, stop. He goes, this doesn't feel right to me. And then he launched into Endless Nameless. And I've never seen so much rage on a person's face. Like, it was scary. At the end, Kurt completely smashed his guitar, blew his voice out. And I think he was, on that particular take, he was playing his left-handed Mosrite. And he smashed it to bits.
Regarding the Mosrite guitar that Butch mentions, his recollection may possibly be incorrect. While Kurt owned a Mosrite back then, it was not left-handed, and actual photos show a destroyed black Stratocaster on the mix board. But if you have any evidence that proves beyond doubt that it was indeed a Mosrite that was destroyed, please share it in the comments below. As for the black Stratocaster, a nearly identical-looking guitar was used by Kurt as late as October 1991, so he likely had it repaired or reused some of its parts. At that point, he had a Tune-O-Matic bridge installed instead of the stock Fender tremolo, and had its humbucker rotated to a straight angle. The guitar was finally destroyed at the end of the set at Cabaret Metro in Chicago. The band played Endless Nameless for their closing song, during which Kurt took Dave's place behind the drums. After the show ended, they completely demolished Dave's drum set, using this guitar as their main tool. It's also important to note that a black Stratocaster body is currently owned by the Museum of Pop Culture in Seattle, with a story attached to it that it was the guitar used during the Nevermind sessions. The body is split in half, and there are mounting holes visible on the top, which means that they at some point held the Tune-O-Matic bridge, which somewhat confirms this whole story. This is probably Kurt's best-known Stratocaster guitar. It first appeared sometime around June 1991, and since it was the first guitar he played live following the Nevermind studio sessions, it's possible that Kurt used it on the album to some extent. When the guitar first appeared, it already had a humbucker in the bridge position, most likely a Seymour Duncan 59, and two white single coils which were probably stock. Kurt decorated the guitar a couple of months later in August with a sticker from the Feeder's Teachers in Space LP, which read Vandalism, as beautiful as a rock in a cop's face, and underneath, in small letters, courtesy of Feeder's, Office of Anti-Public Relations. This guitar was extensively used during the early Nevermind tour until late 1991, most notably during the Reading Festival on August 23rd and at the Paramount on October 31st. At this point, the guitar had a replacement neck with a Fernandez logo on it, and it had duct tape around the strap button on the back. About a month later, on November 25th at Paradiso in Amsterdam, Netherlands, the guitar was seen with what was either a new replacement neck, or it could have been just the old neck with the Fernandez logo sanded down. The guitar was then seen again on November 27th, during the infamous Top of the Pops gig, during which Nirvana was asked to mime their studio track. In protest, they made it very obvious they weren't playing live. Dave was seen going crazy on his drums, Chris swung his bass around and danced, while Kurt held his hand a few inches away from the guitar's neck and sang the song an octave lower. The last gig the Vandalism guitar was used on was on December 7th, 1991, in Rennes, France. According to Kurt's guitar tech, Ernie Bailey, Kurt smashed it at that concert and moved on to the other guitars. Years after Kurt's death, Ernie was involved in putting the guitar back together by fitting it with a Fender-branded neck. Since then, the guitar has been seen in various museum exhibits. This guitar is undoubtedly best known for its appearance in the music video for the song Smells Like Teen Spirit, filmed on August 17, 1991. Given that this is the first time chronologically that Kurt was seen using it, the Mustang was likely purchased approximately somewhere around that same time. Based on Kurt's own words, this was, at least at one point in time, his favorite guitar. In terms of specs, it was finished in Lake Placid blue with a matching headstock and equipped with a black single-coil pickup in the neck and a Seymour Duncan hot rails in the bridge position. The only other custom feature was the Tune-O-Matic bridge. The Mustang was first used for a live performance at Beehive Music and Video Store in Seattle on September 16, 1991, after Nirvana returned from their European tour and just before the release of their album Nevermind on September 24th. However, Kurt used this Mustang only occasionally during the live concerts, as it was seen only on a few odd gigs early on. For example, at a gig played at First Avenue, Minneapolis on October 14, 1991, and at Trees Club on October 19th, where he used this guitar to smash a mixing board. He also used it in 1992, for example, in October at the Crocodile Music Club in Seattle, and in 1993 at Daly City's Cow Palace. From what one can tell based on photos and videos, that was the last time Kurt was ever seen with the guitar. Also, Kurt likely wrote and recorded some of the material for Nirvana's next album, In Utero, using the Mustang since this, after all, was one of his favorite guitars. After Kurt's passing, Courtney apparently gave the guitar to a personal friend, and it has since been seen on several different Nirvana museum exhibits. Unfortunately, it is unknown who this person is. Then, in April 2022, the guitar was put on auction through Julien's auction house. Among the items that were subject to the auction was also Kurt's original 1965 Dodge Dart car. The Mustang ended up selling for $4.5 million, and at the time of publishing this video, it is the second most expensive guitar ever sold, succeeded only by Kurt Cobain's Martin D18E, which sold for around $6 million. We're now coming to the guitars that weren't used as much as the others by Kurt, but deserve a place on this list nonetheless. This particular one was first used live by Kurt at the Hordern Pavilion gig in Sydney, Australia on January 25, 1992. But the first time it was ever seen was in the photographs taken by Joseph Uliano during the filming of the Come As You Are music video, which dates sometime to early 1992. At that point, the guitar featured the original three-tone sunburst finish, which Kurt oversprayed with blue paint sometime before the Australia concert and carved out a heart and Courtney's name on it. Kurt played this Telecaster regularly during the Oceania tour in January and February 1992, after which it for some reason disappeared. The next time he picked it up was at the infamous gig in Sao Paulo on January 16, 1993, considered by some to be one of the band's worst. At the end of this concert, he broke the guitar's neck and threw the pieces into the audience. Allegedly, one of the Red Hot Chili Peppers crew members picked up the neck, while the body is probably in the hands of a collector somewhere. As a little fun trivia detail, a guitar that looks identical to this one appeared in Episode 7, Season 2 of the TV show Californication.
Kurt fucking Cobain played that. Courtney gave it to me. I helped her produce a demo, write some songs. It's yours.
However, upon detailed inspection, it turns out this was a fake and just a prop made for the show, as the original guitar had no blue finish on the back, while the guitar used in the Californication episode did. There is one more guitar from the Nevermind era that deserves separate attention, the one that was custom built for Kurt Cobain by Danny Ferrington. As the story goes, Danny met the band backstage after their SNL performance in January 1992. He stayed in touch with Kurt while the band was on tour in Australia, and Kurt sent him drawings of how he wanted the guitar to look via fax. The Ferrington guitar was modeled mainly after a Fender Mustang, but it had a few distinct differences. Most notably, it had 3 pickups instead of the Mustang's 2. The bridge pickup was a humbucker, and the neck and middle pickups were single coils, with the middle one being angled. They were produced by a company called Bartolini, and the humbucker had a coil split. which gave Kurt greater control over the tone. It appears that Kurt did play the guitar live at least once in Dublin at Point Depot on June 21, 1992. Although many confuse this with a Mustang, the cable does seem to come out at an angle when compared to Mustang models, and Kurt didn't have a similar looking Mustang around that time as far as one can tell. So although this guitar wasn't used by Kurt almost at all, it's still an important one because it was tailored specifically to his needs, and it signaled his desire to design something of his own. Apart from the guitars already mentioned, Kurt used a lot of different Stratocasters during the Nevermind tour. All of these were more or less disposable guitars, meaning that they were not only meant to be played, but also to be destroyed on stage. Just to mention a few of these, Kurt had a white Stratocaster during Nirvana's second European Nevermind tour, which started in early November 1991, and it was at that time used alongside his 1965 Fender Jaguar. This white Stratocaster was then destroyed just a few weeks later, on November 23rd, in Ghent, Belgium. Kurt and Chris battled with their guitars at the end of the show, at which point the neck of this Strat snapped and the body was handed to the audience. After that, he moved on to a black Stratocaster, which first appeared on December 5th at a gig played in London's Kilburn National Ballroom. This guitar was also used during Nirvana's Saturday Night Live performance in 1992, at the end of which the band destroyed the set as per usual. Then there was another white Stratocaster, first seen on February 14, 1992, in Osaka, Japan. Kurt destroyed the guitar that same night, snapping the neck in half, but the body was left relatively undamaged. By February 22nd, it was fixed and was used during a show in Honolulu. This Stratocaster then served as one of Kurt's disposable guitars throughout 1992. Among others, he was seen using it in Stockholm, Sweden on June 30th, at the MTV Video Music Awards show on September 9th, and in Buenos Aires, Argentina on October 30th. At the end of the last song of the Buenos Aires concert, Kurt fiddled with the guitar on stage for a few minutes, and finally picked it up from the floor and started smashing it until the neck broke off. Then there was a Sunburst Strat, which was first used at the Reading Festival in 1992. Kurt started the set with his 1965 Fender Jaguar, but switched to this Stratocaster at around the 30-minute mark and played it for most of the gig. The guitar was most likely brand new since it was the first Sunburst Strat that Kurt had ever used, and the only modification that he had done to it seemed to be the Seymour Duncan Hot Rails pickup in the bridge position. Lastly, there was another white Stratocaster, which based on photos and videos available, was used only once, on September 11, 1992, at Seattle Center Coliseum. At the end of the gig, the guitar was destroyed, and in some way or another, it ended up on an exhibit organized by the Mopop Museum in Seattle. This guitar was most likely pieced together from various parts, and the black-colored Seymour Duncan Hot Rails which came installed on it likely originated from a black Stratocaster that Kurt destroyed just around a week earlier at the Reading Festival. And with that, we end the list of guitars that Kurt played during the Nevermind era. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to like it. If you notice any mistakes, please feel free to comment and let us know. Also, be sure to check out our videos on the guitars used during both the Bleach and In Utero eras. Also, be sure to check our website at groundguitar.com, where we have much more information on these guitars. Thanks for watching.